The president was not always able to take your advice, but he would always listen. And Vietnam was probably a disappointment for you, wasn't it, in terms of talking to him about an opportunity when we had the trouble with the Buddhists over there and so forth?
Yes.
You saw that as an opportunity to get out, didn't you?
The then South Vietnamese dictator, Ngo Diem, with whom I had spent almost a half a day in Saigon earlier, and whose leadership had, in my view, become increasingly corrupt and dictatorial, had launched a vicious system of religious persecution of the Buddhists. Ngo Diem himself, as you will doubtless recall, was of the Catholic faith, and his chief sponsor in this country was Cardinal Spellman in New York, where Diem had spent a good deal of time. Whatever the causes and the conditions, he launched a program of severe persecution of the leaders of the Buddhist religion. I thought this was intolerable, and I thought it was something with which the United States should publicly, before the world, disassociate itself. And I called for an appointment with the President, and at least I always received a favorable response when I wanted to see him. And we had a visit, not in his office, but in one of the family sitting rooms. And it was late in the afternoon, and he ordered cocktails. And I noticed, as I had noticed on previous occasions, that he would merely touch his to his lips. He'd go through the motion, but it was if it were a sip, it was a very light one. I'm not going to claim the same restraint. I'm afraid I consumed mine, and we talked for, I guess, an hour. And I made this point and undertook to persuade him to use this as a reason, not an excuse, but a genuine reason to withdraw completely from what I then foresaw as a quagmire for the United States, where our losses would be very great and the chances of success very small. He agreed, said that he thought the chances of being successful in South Vietnam were extremely slim. He didn't give me an answer on my recommendation to use the religious pretext for a completely and full and prompt withdrawal. I thought I got my answer the next day. Charlie Bartlett, his warm personal friend and my warm personal friend.
Isn't he from Chattanooga, or he wrote for the Times for a while before?
He wrote for the Times, and then he wrote a column, became a columnist. He visited with the President the next day, and then came by to see me in the afternoon. And I told him of my visit with the President. He didn't say that Kennedy had made any comment to him, but Bartlett, made a comment on his own. Said, well, after Truman was blamed for losing China, no Democratic president can now precipitously withdraw from Vietnam. So this made me sad, because I thought this was, if that indeed was the president's position, it was placed in domestic politics ahead of what appeared to me to be clearly the national interest. That's not the first or the last time that I saw presidents do things like that.
Senator, I want you to comment on something I know was very important to you. You stood on principle all your life. There are times when an elected official has access to information that the public doesn't. You can't reveal it to the public. Therefore, you sometimes take courageous stands knowing that you're going to be in a hailstorm, so to speak. I have a quote here that you made. There's really no point in serving in Congress unless one were willing to fight for what one thought was right. So that sentence has been important to you, and you were willing to take stands knowing that you would receive opposition in some points. Isn't that hard for a fellow to do sometimes, and particularly when you know it could hurt your re-election chances?
Well, it's, you say hard to do. It's painful, but I don't think I'd use the word hard. Well, let me be frank in saying that I had the confidence of Richard Helms, who was then chairman of the CIA. He gave me regularly reports of the true facts in Vietnam. This became very important during the Johnson and Kennedy administrations. I came to know that the American people were being misled by the President, by the State Department, and by the military leaders. And yet, my own people were being killed. Thousands of them. In a question so important as war, or equity and fairness in tax policy, or a social security program that brings sustenance and consolation to people in the evening of their life.
The caliber of men that sit on the Supreme Court of the United States.
Our selection of people to be on the United States Supreme Court. Unless a man is willing to act upon his conscience and best judgment, he should not be in the United States Senate anyway. And I never wanted to be anywhere that I couldn't do that.